Welcome to the Tomorrow's World Today podcast. We sit down with experts, world-changing innovators, creators, and makers to explore how they're taking action to make tomorrow's world a better place for technology, science, innovation, sustainability, the arts, and more. On this archive episode, host George Davison, who is also the host of the TV series Tomorrow's World Today, interviews Dr. Kristin Yarema, former Chief Commercial Officer at Atara Biotherapeutics. Dr. Yarema shares her personal journey blending science and creativity and the company's mission to transform treatment for serious diseases like cancer and multiple sclerosis. She emphasizes the importance of communication, mentorship, and passion in biopharma, while highlighting the industry's potential to revolutionize care for neurodegenerative diseases.
Thanks for coming, Kristin. We were hoping to have a conversation with you today for our audience to learn a little more about the organization that you're working with and how you got to where you are in the world today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to our conversation.
All right. So can you tell us how was Atara formed? Was there a founder back in the day?
Oh, yes. Yes, there was. So Atara Biotherapeutics was founded in 2012 by Dr. Isaac Chichenover, and he named the company for his mother. His mother's name was Atara, and she had, at the time, recently passed away from ovarian cancer. So he named the company in her memory.
That's wonderful. That's very meaningful. I could see why he was so passionate as to what he was working on. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it helps us really stay focused on patients. You know, at Atara, our mission is really to transform the lives of patients with serious, grievous illnesses like cancer, multiple sclerosis. And so, you know, just having our company be named in honor of a patient who needed more therapeutic options than she had, you know, it just keeps that very front and center for us. It's really our North Star.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you know, as sad as that can be for him, having a North Star that can move through time with staff as the company continues to grow, that's very helpful for startups. So can you tell us a little about your position at the organization?
Yes, absolutely. So I am Atara's Chief Commercial Officer. I also oversee corporate communications and public affairs. So what I do is really a couple things. So I focus on how do we take the therapies that we are developing in clinical trials and how do we make them ready as medicines to really meet the needs of patients? So, you know, how is it going to be handled by insurance? How are we going to communicate about the therapy to physicians, to patients, to anyone who needs to know about it? And so in a way, I would say communication is really at the heart of what I do.
Wonderful. You know, that's communication. We refer to that around here as storytelling, and trying to figure out a way to communicate new innovations and technologies to the general public that has all sorts of different upbringings and understandings. And how do we communicate? If you create something, you need to learn how to communicate in a way that your audience will understand. So that makes sense.
Yeah, ideas have no power if we can't communicate them. You know, it's like the tree falling in the forest, right? Does it happen if no one hears it?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, so let's take it back then. How did you figure out that was something you'd like to do?
Oh, it's a great question. So, you know, I guess growing up, I always had, I felt a very strong tension between the arts and a creative side and the sciences and engineering. And my family had a number of doctors and scientists in it. So I saw that, saw them growing up, and I was very inspired. Both my uncle and my grandfather were doctors. My aunt was the head nurse in the ER, really challenging job. My mother was a science teacher, and my father was a researcher at one of the national labs. So the STEM, the STEM genes were very strong, but also really passionate about art and music and doing things with visual or creative arts. And so the idea of creating, innovating, making something new was also always very strong for me. So, I got to the point, well, what do I do with that, right? Where does that take you? So I ended up in college with a really bizarre double major of chemical engineering and English. And then I thought, well, where do I go from here? How do I apply that? And so, I thought I want to make a difference. I want to research and work on and bring to market new medicines. And I want to make sure that people really understand the power of innovation. And that kind of led me into roles like what I'm doing now. And I just love being an Atara, and I love what I do.
Well, that comes across. So I'm thrilled that you found something that you love to do. And because that's the kind of passion that, moves you into life and to chase bigger goals. I don't know how I'd do life if I didn't love what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So how about mentors? Did you have a mentor in high school that might have helped to steer you into the field of science?
Yes. So I would say, teachers and family. So I had some amazing science teachers in high school. They all kind of fit the bill in a way of the portrait of the mad scientist, and they were just zany. And, so we did very creative lab work, and, and I loved chemistry. I loved watching chemical reactions and seeing things happen. So, I would say my science teachers in high school really put me on that path. And I continued to watch my family too. So I would have the opportunity to go into some of the medical offices, of my grandfather and uncle, and, hear and see what they did for patient care and how important that is. So I would say, those examples, learning from all of those people was really, really formative for me.
Most high school experiences aren't perfect. So if we could share something in the world of, around here we refer to it as we like to fail our way forward. We learn from our mistakes. If there was a mistake that you'd like to forget about, or maybe, that you might share with just so the people know this, you can move past mistakes, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, there's so many. I guess for me, and maybe a lot of this would be in the realm of cooking. I like to create things, and
yes,
and so I was always kind of experimenting in the kitchen, and some of those things turned out really well. So I make an amazing chocolate chip apricot cookie, and any flavor of pie you want to think about. But some of them were also quite spectacular failures, like the time that I invited friends over for coffee, but I didn't know the first thing about making coffee, and I boiled whole beans in a pot, and that just didn't go over so well. Fortunately, I still had the friends after that failed experiment, but it's you just, if you don't experiment, if you don't take the risks, then you're not going to know when those happy accidents come out, right?
Sure.
I used to watch that painter Bob Ross, and he always described his paintings as happy accidents. He didn't quite know how they were going to turn out. He just put paint all over the canvas, but it always turned out well. So
right, kept at it, and he had a good eye and creative mind, and you get back up off the ground and try again, or keep working on it. He made those happy little trees.
Exactly, the happy little trees. That's it. Yeah.
How about? So it sounds like you like to cook. Is that a hobby?
Yeah. So, everything that's I like working with my hands, and also just, visual and creative art. So, I love to cook. I love to make things, crafting things, but I also really love music and literature.
Mm-hmm.
So, all those things I would say are kind of what keep me going, when I'm not at work.
Yeah, so it's a work-life balance, right? So sometimes we have to really think hard and work hard, and we need that relaxation time to let it all go loose. Around here, when we work really hard, we think of it as our mind is working on a problem, and the more we work on it, our mind gets tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where we can't get any ideas out of it. And so hey, it's time to take a break and relax and bring that mind to an open state again. And it's amazing how many ideas actually come in once we go into that other state of mind.
You are absolutely right. In fact, I think one of the challenges in our busy professional lives, and something that I'm really have to be very mindful about, is making time to just step back and let things percolate, let the juices flow, and step away from the problem at hand for a couple hours, maybe even a couple days. And at least for me, sometimes that's when the ideas really pop. And I've learned, and it took a long time, but I've learned to really respect my own personal creative process in that way.
Yes.
And just trust that it will come, and it usually comes, but making that space, for those ideas to flow.
All right. So, knowing what you know today, what advice would you give someone interested in entering into your industry?
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, I would definitely encourage people to enter my industry. I think there's never been a better time to be in biopharma, and what we're doing at Atara and cell therapy in particular. This is a frontier, and we expect that this technology and this area of medicine is just going to grow for, years and decades to come. And so what I would say to people who are interested is, first and foremost, be open. Do make sure that it aligns with your personal passions and values. Life is too short to be, stuck doing something that you're like, this just isn't the right fit for me. So, so dive in with both feet if it's the thing that suits you, and then try to learn from people around you. So seek out those mentors, talk to a lot of people. I think, I wish I had talked to more people when I was early on in my career. I think that's something that I did not do enough of. And I would definitely counsel, younger folks to do that, because there are so many different perspectives. There are so many different paths, so many different opportunities. It's really about understanding what's out there and what's going to play to your unique strengths and passions. And be open to the opportunities that come along. Some of the greatest experiences I've had in my professional career were things I didn't see coming, things that when the idea was pitched to me or the opportunity was presented, I was like, I'm not really sure that's what I want to do. That's for me. But I listened. I tried to listen, and I did listen to the advice of others. And those times led me into spaces where I learned so much, took on, new tasks, learned new skills that I never thought I would have. And that wouldn't have been possible, if I hadn't listened and taken advantage of, some of the unusual things that were offered up to me.
So the audience understands this emerging industry, biopharma. Can you maybe describe a little bit of what that means if they may not have heard that term before? What do you do in the field of biopharma?
Yeah, absolutely. So biopharma is really the industry where we discover, develop, manufacture, and ultimately bring to physicians and patients new medicines. And of course, we have a lot of medicines already. So someone might say, well, do we really need more medicines? Well, there are so many diseases and conditions today where we really have no good therapeutic options at all, or we can always do better. So think about, we work a lot in the area of cancer, and some people may have heard about President Joe Biden's moonshot initiative for cancer. So that's the idea there is, can we cure 50% of cancers? Well, that sounds pretty good. It'd be a lot better than what we're doing today. But 50%? That means 1 out of 2 people is going to have a cancer that isn't cured.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do better than that. And so, if you're the kind of person who loves helping people, loves innovation, wants to do something that's really going to have an impact,
yes,
then I think, biopharma is just an amazing field to work in.
And it's like, I think all industries, there's no stopping point. Eventually you get to the point where you're doing more innovations, and maybe there are incremental improvements. Around here, we refer to it as there are incremental improvements, which are small incremental stepping stones forward. And then there's the dramatic, the brand new creation, which is never been seen before. And then that leads to the birth of a new industry. So, yeah, I don't ever see any industry not going through incremental. So I think there'll be a lot of jobs in this area for quite a long time.
That's for sure.
Let's see here. So if we were talking about just people in general, and with your life experiences so far and all the different people you've met, do you think just about anybody can be successful today? And you can define successful as personally successful, let's say financially successful. You could take that word a lot of different ways, but do you think anyone can be successful?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the number one thing is being interested, being involved. And if it's something that, excites you and you want to do, then absolutely. There's some training, there's getting advice from, like I said, others around you. But, in my field, there are also so many different things that can be done. So everyone can contribute in some way. Mm-hmm. So making a new medicine is a total team sport. It takes the whole village. You've got people who are doing research on the bench. You've got people who are out interacting with doctors in hospitals and helping design and run clinical trials. You've got people like myself who are thinking about, how do we set up arrangements with insurance, or how do we make communications? And then you've got, people who, IT is huge, right? So, you might think, if I'm an IT person, am I working in medicine? Yeah, absolutely. We crunch huge amounts of data. We, we make it all happen. So I think it's deciding that it's an interest that you have, and then stepping in and trying it out.
Yes. So basically, success is defined in such a broad way that if you're happy and you have found something that intrigues you, and a company or a person's willing to pay you for that, you've been successful in at least the commercial form of the word. And so hopefully you can find your passion out there. So could we focus on, let's say, one project that you can think of in your industry that you think would elevate humankind the most?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. Well, I mean, there are two that jump to mind. I mean, the first is definitely, changing the curve, reaching that moonshot with cancer that we talked about,
yes,
already a little bit. But we already mentioned that one, so I'm going to give you another, which is neurodegenerative diseases. So, neuroscience is in a way, one of the great remaining frontiers in medicine. Mm-hmm. Think about diseases like Alzheimer's or ALS or
Yes.
a disease that we're working on investigating new therapies for, which is multiple sclerosis. So all of these are diseases that are chronic deterioration, long-term degradation of the nerves, and they affect millions of people in total, and are just disastrous, horrible, and often deadly diseases. And they've been very difficult nuts to crack. So I think if we could really begin to find effective novel therapies for neurodegenerative diseases, the public impact, the public health impact, the impact on millions of patients and their families, their caregivers, would be simply enormous. And so that's what we're trying to do a little bit with therapy that we have, investigational therapy that we have in development for multiple sclerosis. We're starting with studies in progressive forms of multiple sclerosis, which is, just to put it very simply, where someone just progresses with their disease. It never gets any better. It only gets worse over time. And the question is how quickly and how much. And we really need effective new therapies that can address progression for that disease. So
that's a noble cause. And that sounds like something that we need a lot of work on that subject. Right? So, well, this has been very eye-opening, and I want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us about your background and your company and some of the things you're working on in the future. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you so very much, George. It's been fantastic to be here, and and I would really encourage any of you young people out there to really think about careers in STEM or STEAM. It's all important, and if it makes you tick, there's so much opportunity. There's something new, something creative out there for everyone. So good luck.
Thank you, Kristin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tomorrow's World Today podcast. Join us next time as we continue to explore the worlds of inspiration, creation, innovation, and production. Discover more at tomorrowsworldtoday.com, connect with us on social media at TWT Explore, and find us wherever podcasts are available.